my stepson Jace invaded my room in the dead of night. What he did next left me speechless, a true tale of forbidden desire, Part 2. The morning after that night broke over Miami like a fever dream, golden light spilling through the glass walls of the villa, painting the ocean in hues of fire and promise. I woke tangled in sheets that still carried Jace's scent, sandalwood and salt, a reminder of the storm we'd unleashed. My body ached in a way it hadn't in years, a delicious soreness that pulsed with every breath, every memory of his hands on me, his lips claiming mine with a hunger I'd never known. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the fan spinning lazily above, my mind a chaotic swirl of guilt, thrill, and something dangerously close to longing. Jace was gone from the bed, but his presence lingered, heavy and inescapable. I pressed my fingers to my lips, still swollen from his kisses, and whispered to the empty room, "What have I done?" I pulled myself up, the emerald silk dress crumpled on the floor like a shed skin, a testament to the boundary we'd shattered. The mirror caught my reflection, hair wild, eyes wide with a mix of exhaustion and awakening, my skin flushed with the afterglow of something I couldn't name. At 42, I'd thought my days of passion were buried with Victor, but last night had ripped that delusion apart. Jace, Victor's son, my stepson, had crossed a line I'd never imagined, and worse, I'd crossed it with him. I wrapped myself in a robe, the silk cool against my heated skin, and stepped onto the balcony. The sea roared below, waves crashing against the shore with a fury that mirrored the turmoil inside me. I gripped the railing, the salty breeze stinging my eyes, and tried to make sense of it all. He was 20, a man now, not the boy I'd comforted through nightmares after Victor's death. But he was still family, wasn't he? The sound of footsteps pulled me back. Jace appeared in the doorway, shirtless, his dark hair tousled, those brown eyes locking onto me with an intensity that made my knees weak. "Morning," he said, his voice low and rough, carrying a weight that sent a shiver through me. He stepped closer, barefoot on the hardwood, his presence filling the space like the tide claiming the shore. "You okay?" he asked, stopping just short of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. I nodded, though it was a lie, my heart pounded, my thoughts a tangled mess. "Jace, we need to talk about last night," I said, my voice unsteady. He tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "What's there to talk about? It happened. We both wanted it." His words were a punch, blunt and unapologetic, stripping away the excuses I'd been building in my mind. I turned away, staring at the ocean, trying to find solid ground. "It's not that simple," I said. "You're Victor's son. I raised you, Jace. This is wrong." He stepped closer, his chest brushing my back, his breath warm against my neck. "Victor's gone, Elena. I'm not a kid anymore, and you're not my mother. What we did, it wasn't wrong. It was real." His hand slid to my shoulders, firm but gentle, turning me to face him. I looked up, caught in those eyes, deep, searching, ablaze with something that made my resolve falter. "Tell me you didn't feel it," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Tell me you don't feel it now." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. My body betrayed me, my pulse racing, my skin tingling where his hands rested. I pulled away, stepping back into the room, needing distance to breathe. "This can't happen again," I said, more to myself than to him. He watched me, unwavering. "We'll see," he replied, and then he left me there, alone with the chaos he'd ignited. The days that followed were a tightrope walk between desire and denial. Jace didn't push, but he didn't retreat either. He was everywhere, his laughter echoing through the villa as he fixed a drink at the bar, his silhouette cutting through the morning light as he swam laps in the infinity pool, water glistening on his skin like liquid gold. Every glance, every casual brush of his arm against mine as we passed in the hall, stoked the fire I was desperate to smother. I threw myself into work, planning a gala for a tech mogul downtown, hoping the chaos of schedules and floral arrangements would drown out the memory of his touch. But at night, alone in my room, the silence betrayed me. I'd lie awake, replaying every second, his lips on my neck, his hands gripping my hips, the way he'd moved against me with a rhythm that felt like fate. My fingers would drift to my skin, tracing the paths he'd left, and I'd curse myself for wanting more. One afternoon, I stood in the kitchen, pouring iced tea, the heat of Miami pressing against the windows. Jace walked in, fresh from the pool, droplets trailing down his chest, a towel slung low around his hips. "Hot out there," he said, grabbing a glass, his voice casual but his eyes anything but. I nodded, avoiding his gaze, but he stepped closer, reaching past me for the pitcher, his arm brushing mine. The contact was electric, a jolt that made me spill the tea across the counter. "Damn it," I muttered, grabbing a cloth, but he took it from me, his fingers lingering on mine. "Let me," he said, wiping the spill, his body so close I could smell the chlorine on his skin, feel the heat rolling off him. "Jace," I started, my voice a warning, but he looked up, his face inches from mine. "You're fighting this too hard, Elena," he said softly. "Why?" I pulled back, heart hammering. "Because it's not right," I snapped. He straightened, tossing the cloth aside. "Feels pretty right to me," he said, and walked out, leaving me trembling against the counter. That night, a storm rolled in, thunder rumbling over the bay, lightning splitting the sky. I stood at the window, watching the rain lash the glass, my robe slipping off one shoulder. The villa creaked under the wind's assault, and I felt it, the pull, the inevitability. I heard him before I saw him, the soft thud of his steps on the stairs. My door opened, and there he was, Jace, soaked from the rain, his shirt clinging to his frame, hair dripping, eyes wild. "Elena," he said, voice rough with need. "I can't stay away." I should have stopped him, should have sent him back, but my feet moved toward him instead. "Jace, we can't," I began, but he closed the distance, hands cupping my face, lips crashing into mine. The kiss was a wildfire, urgent, consuming, tasting of rain and rebellion. His hand slid down my neck, peeling the robe from my shoulders, letting it fall in a whisper of silk. I pressed against him, the wet fabric of his shirt cold against my skin, his heat burning through it. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist, and carried me to the bed, laying me down with a gentleness that belied the storm in his eyes. His lips found my throat, tracing a blazing path, his breath hot and ragged. I arched into him, hands tugging at his shirt, desperate to feel his skin against mine. He pulled it off, tossing it aside, his bare chest gleaming in the lightning's flash, muscles taut, skin slick with rain. "Elena," he murmured against my collarbone, his voice a growl, "you drive me insane." His hands roamed my body, firm and possessive, igniting every inch they touched. I gasped as he kissed lower, his mouth teasing the curve of my chest, sending waves of heat crashing through me. I clutched his shoulders, nails digging in, urging him closer. He responded, his body pressing into mine, the weight of him a delicious anchor in the chaos. Our breaths tangled, fast and desperate, as he moved with me, slow at first, then faster, a rhythm that built like the storm outside. My hand slid down his back, feeling the flex of muscle under my fingers, the heat of him searing me. "Jace," I whispered, voice breaking, and he groaned, a sound that vibrated through me, pushing me closer to the edge. The world narrowed to this, to him, to us, every touch a spark, every kiss a flame. I arched beneath him, surrendering completely, my body trembling as pleasure surged, fierce and unrelenting. He held me tight, his own release crashing with mine, our gasps mingling in the thunder's roar. We collapsed together, breathless, tangled in each other, the rain pounding the glass like a drumbeat to our reckless hearts. He stayed beside me, his arm draped over my waist, his breath slowing against my neck. "Elena," he whispered, voice soft now, "I'm not letting this go." I turned to him, meeting his eyes, still fierce, but tender. "Jace, what are we doing?" I asked, voice fragile. He brushed my hair back, his touch gentle. "We're living," he said. "For once, we're living." I didn't argue, just let his warmth pull me under, sleep claiming me as the storm raged on. Weeks passed, and our secret grew, stolen glances over breakfast, quiet moments on the balcony, nights when he'd slip into my room, his presence a drug I couldn't quit. But guilt gnawed at me. Victor's memory haunted the villa, his photos on the walls, his name etched in the silence. One evening, I found an old letter from him in a drawer, his words of love a knife in my chest. "What am I doing?" I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Jace found me there, sitting on the floor, the letter crumpled in my hand. "Elena," he said, kneeling beside me, "don't do this to yourself." I looked up, voice breaking. "He was your father, Jace. This is betraying him." He took my face in his hands, firm but gentle. "Dad loved you. He'd want you to be happy, not trapped in the past. And I love you too, Elena. Not as a son, but as a man." His confession stunned me, a truth I couldn't unhear. The next day, a call shattered our fragile bubble. Victor's sister, Marla, was coming to visit, unexpected, insistent, her voice sharp over the phone. "I need to see how you're holding up," she said. Panic gripped me. Marla, with her piercing eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, would see through us in a heartbeat. "Jace, she can't know," I said, pacing the living room. He smirked, unfazed. "She won't. We're careful." But I wasn't so sure. Marla arrived 2 days later, her suitcase thumping onto the marble floor, her gaze sweeping the villa like a hawk. "You look different, Elena," she said, eyes narrowing. "Glowy. What's going on?" I forced a laugh, brushing it off. "Just work, keeping busy." But Jace's presence, his casual touch on my arm as he passed, his lingering looks, set my nerves on edge. That night, Marla cornered me in the kitchen, her voice low. "Something's off here. Jace, he's too comfortable with you. Too close." My stomach dropped. "He's family, Marla," I lied, heart racing. She stared at me, unconvinced. "Family doesn't look at each other like that." I fled to my room, locking the door, but Jace slipped in later, his eyes blazing. "She suspects something," I whispered, panicked. He pulled me close, lips brushing my ear. "Let her. I don't care who knows." Before I could protest, he kissed me, hard, possessive, his hand sliding under my shirt, igniting me despite the fear. We fell into bed, the danger only fueling the fire, his touch erasing Marla's words as we lost ourselves again. Marla left after a tense week, her parting words a warning: "Be careful, Elena. Some lines aren't meant to be crossed." But it was too late, we'd crossed them, burned them, and built something new in the ashes. Jace and I didn't stop, couldn't stop. Our nights were a blur of passion, our days a dance of secrecy. But the world wouldn't stay quiet forever. One evening, a friend of Victor's, Paul, dropped by unannounced, catching Jace's hand on my waist as we laughed in the kitchen. His eyes widened, then darkened. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. I froze, but Jace stepped forward, unflinching. "It's what it looks like," he said. Paul stormed out, promising to tell everyone, and I knew the storm was coming. It hit fast, whispers turned to shouts, old friends cutting ties, Marla's furious calls flooding my phone. The villa, once a sanctuary, became a cage under Miami's relentless sun. "We should leave," Jace said one night, his arms around me as we lay in bed, the ocean roaring outside. "Start over somewhere else." I looked at him, his face lit by moonlight, and nodded. "Anywhere but here." We packed in secret, sold the villa through a discreet agent, and fled to a small coastal town in Oregon, rainy, quiet, a world away from Miami's heat. There, we built a life, tentative, fragile, but ours. Jace worked at a marina, I planned small events, and we lived as lovers, not stepmother and stepson, the past a shadow we rarely named. But secrets don't die, they simmer. A year later, a letter arrived, no return address, just a photo of us on the Oregon beach, a note scrawled in red: "I know what you did." My hand shook as I showed Jace, his jaw tightening. "Someone's watching us," I whispered. He pulled me close, his voice steady. "Let them watch. I'm not losing you." That night, under the Oregon rain, he kissed me, fierce, defiant, his hands claiming me as thunder rolled overhead. We'd escaped Miami, but the past wasn't done with us. And as I clung to him, I knew this story, our story, was far from over. If this tale has gripped you, don't stop here, the next chapter is brewing, darker and wilder. Subscribe, hit that bell, and tell me below, what would you do in my shoes? Run, fight, or surrender? Your thoughts fuel this fire, let's keep it burning.